Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. This one is for Monday, October 22nd, all the way through to Sunday, October 28th of 2018. And this week we have kind of a crazy, sort of intense week ahead. You know me, I'm usually not super dramatic about the astrology, but when we have this really intense Uranus activation with Uranus opposing Venus, and this being highlighted by the full moon in Taurus this week, I do think that this is going to be sort of a week that shakes things up for us in a lot of different ways. And I do think the results of this shakeup is going to be positive, but positive results don't always mean that it's going to be comfortable in the process of making those changes and sort of rearranging and shaking things up, because it will be a disruptive sort of influence that we're going to be going through this week. And I did talk a little bit about this full moon in my previous video this month with Robert Phoenix, so you can check that out if you haven't already done so, to get more of a glimpse of sort of the global effects of this full moon and, the Uranus opposition to Venus, which comes exact next week, but it's pretty close right now, and it's certainly being highlighted by this full moon. And speaking of which, if you're watching this video as it's being uploaded Saturday morning, then you have a few more hours to get the live webinar with me and Robert Phoenix, the AstroNavigation for 2019, where we'll be talking about all of the major events that'll be affecting us through the end of next year. It'll be $10 off just for one more day until after the 20th, and the link to sign up is in the description of this video down below. But anyway, coming back to this forecast, so there's going to be a lot of sort of interesting energy that's going to be playing out this week. First, we have the sun coming into an opposition with Uranus, which comes exact on Tuesday. And so that's going to be ushering us into the energy of this full moon. It's going to be very active all week long. I would say, Monday through Saturday and all the way into, I think this is going to be more of a 2-week influence, because the opposition between Venus and Uranus comes exact on the 31st of October on Halloween. And so up until that point, we're having a lot of activation of this opposition as well. So I would say 2 to 3 week influence with all of these aspects that we're talking about here, but it's going to be a little bit different this week because of the full moon. But what we're going to be having going on is the sun will actually come into an opposition exact with Uranus on Tuesday evening. And so that's going to be a little bit disruptive. It's going to be disruptive to our sense of identity. It's going to be disruptive to our consciousness, to our awareness. It's going to be disruptive to our sense of self. And in general, it's just kind of an influence that causes us to need to change something. So, especially coming into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I feel like, and into Friday as well, I feel like people are going to be feeling the urge to break free from some sort of old paradigm that was restricted, limiting, burdensome in some sort of way, so that way we can liberate ourselves and to have a lot more freedom individually, but also within our partnerships, within our relationships, because this is going to be the sun in a conjunction with Venus as well. So that Venus-Uranus opposition will be activated by the sun and moon in opposition, which is what a full moon is. It's when the sun is in opposition to the moon. And so the sun right now is going to be in the sign of Scorpio. So, the sun moves into Scorpio on Tuesday. And then it immediately opposes Uranus, because Uranus is at that 0 degree in the sign of Taurus right now, because it's retrograding backward. It's about to move right back into Aries, where it'll actually retrograde back into Aries, I think, the very start of November. And so it's kind of like an intense energy already, because we have Uranus sort of in this volatile state. It's switching signs. It's in retrograde. A lot of internalized rebellion can be bottled up and sort of expressed inappropriately throughout this sort of time frame. And then we have Venus, which has been in retrograde for a couple of weeks now. And so Venus retrograde is going to be highlighted by this as well. And that's going to be looking at a lot of the revisiting and revising and sort of going back and addressing old wounds, old vulnerabilities, old traumas, old fears and anxieties involving our relationships, our finances, beauty, our ability to experience pleasure, issues involving our self-worth and self-esteem, especially for women, can come up. Issues with women in general. It's a difficult time usually for women when we have Venus going retrograde. And of course, this was no exception. The day that Venus stationed retrograde was pretty difficult on October 5th for a lot of people if they were paying attention to what's going on in the mainstream media. And so Anyway, it's going to be highlighting some of these things, but there's going to be a need to change something. I need to break free from old contracts, old agreements to create a little bit of imbalance in our lives in order to come back into balance. And so we'll get into that a little bit more when we go into the forecast for all 12 signs. But I will say that with this particular full moon, I do think that there's going to be a long-term sustainable effect of the changes that we're making, because Saturn will be coming into a really nice sextile with the Sun and with Venus, an exact sextile with Venus actually, which is really great for longevity, for creating stability, for creating a really solid foundation for the future, and then coming into a really nice trine with the moon and with Uranus as a part of this whole configuration going on here. And so again, this brings stability, longevity. It stabilizes the otherwise sort of chaotic energy of Uranus, which can really be really disruptive. It really shakes things up. It can feel very uncomfortable to deal with that energy for a lot of people. Some people do really well with Uranus energy, some people don't, and it just really depends on your own personal chart and how well you deal with change and surprise, right? And lack of control, because that's what Uranus brings. It brings the unexpected. And you do have an ability to sort of engage with Uranus and to sort of direct the energy of the change and the disruption that's going on in your life, to work with it rather than against it. But if you're sort of opposed to change in all forms, if you're feeling very resistant to branching outside of your comfort zones, then, the next couple of weeks might be a little bit difficult. But, for the most part, I do see this as being a more positive influence in our charts, bringing really surprising, it's also going to be bringing a lot of stuff from the past back up, because this is the second pass of this transit, and it's the second of 3 passes of this transit. And so kind of looking back here, when was the day that this came exact? I had it written down and now I don't remember. It was just a couple of weeks ago, you guys. But yeah, so this transit's going to be coming exact for the second time. I thought I had it in here. That's okay. I'll give you guys the date in just a second. But so this is the second time, the second pass. So this could be us revisiting something, revisiting an old relationship, revisiting an old sort of disruption in a relationship. Maybe a new contract came on very suddenly the first pass of this transit, and now we have to kind of go back and revise, re-edit, redo it. Take some time to sort of break free from any sort of limitations, restrictions. Possessiveness in relationship as well could be something that we're breaking free from, because that is the nature of Venus and Scorpio, is to be a little bit more possessive, jealous, overbearing in that sense, because Venus in Scorpio craves really deep intimacy and a lot of intensity in relationship, but that doesn't necessarily always manifest positively, right? So, breaking free and liberating ourselves from relationships or structures or agreements that feel oppressive, that feel a little too intense, that feel maybe manipulative in some sort of way, that feel disempowering, because that's also the nature of Venus and Scorpio. Scorpio is all about how we use and abuse our power. And with Venus retrograding, we're kind of taking a look at that, how we involve ourselves in different power struggles and power issues in relationships, how we use our power in relationship, how we allow our power to be taken away from us in relationship, right? This is all Venus and Scorpio stuff. And, Uranus right now is providing a really incredible opportunity for us to break free from old paradigms, old limitations, old restrictions in all of our relationships, in all of our contractual agreements, in anything that disempowers us in our lives, especially, again, involving partnership, relationships, finances, power struggles, those types of things, deep fears, because, when we look at Scorpio, we're looking at our fears, and our fears disempower us, because when we are afraid of something, right, we give it our power. And so, it kind of controls us to a certain extent, even if it's going on subconsciously or behind the scenes. But anyway, so that's sort of what's going on this week. I do think that people will be making a lot of changes over these next couple of weeks, a lot of adjustments, trying to come back into balance by breaking free from old limiting, restricting patterns and circumstances. And I think the changes that we're making in these next couple of weeks are going to be, long lasting. I think they're going to withstand the test of time. And I think we're setting ourselves up with a solid foundation through this disruption for the future. And so it's going to sort of manifest differently in each sign. And so we'll get into that right now, starting, of course, with Aries and Aries rising. And I did forget Libra last week, you guys. I'm very sorry about that. I was hoping to have time to record something for Libra specifically, but we'll get into Libra this week. We'll get into all the signs, so I do apologize for that. Last week I was outside and we have some bees that are really active right now, actually, and they kept flying around me, so I kept having to pause and stitch together everything, so I must have just gotten distracted. Okay, guys, so let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs. Okay, so first let's start with Aries and Aries rising. And of course, it's always best to listen to your rising sign first and your sun sign is secondary if you do know what your rising sign is. The sun sign itself will provide really good information, but it's going to be most accurate in terms of what's really happening in your life, usually when you listen to your rising sign, and then the sun sign provides additional information. Some people like to listen to their moon sign, especially when, you know, we're looking at something like the full moon. It can be more relevant, or if your chart is ruled by the moon, for instance, like if you are a Cancer or a Cancer rising, then the moon might be a little more important for you. But yeah, so listen for your rising sign and then listen for your sun sign. But for Aries and Aries rising, this full moon is happening in the sign of Taurus, which is your second house. And so this could bring some sort of culmination point of some energy that was seeded probably a little while ago, maybe even around May when Uranus first moved into Taurus, because that's when it was in this position last. But it could be the culmination point of some sort of change that you seeded to create more freedom for yourself, to change something involving your finances, your resources, the way that you save and earn and create money. You know, maybe you're looking to free yourself financially. Maybe you're looking to pay off debts, especially with Venus retrograding in the 8th house. That could be something that could be highlighted right now. And so this could bring some sort of culmination point, but also a need to make more adjustments to change. It could be a little disruptive to your finances in one way or another, but I do think that the disruption would mostly be positive, especially because Saturn is in your 10th house of career right now. And so, you know, the hard work that you're putting into your career, your public reputation, what it is that you're doing out in the world is going to benefit you by bringing sort of unexpected changes and new circumstances, new opportunities for you with this full moon potentially in the sign of Taurus in your second house. So new opportunities to create resources, new financial endeavors and opportunities, especially involving technology or involving something different than what you normally would engage with, right? Something that causes you to sort of branch out of your comfort zone, to think outside of the box. Because when we have the moon in Taurus is all about grounding and getting comfortable, getting cozy. And with Uranus there, that's just not necessarily going to be possible. You're going to be feeling the urge to shake things up a little bit more, especially if you already started off on that path. And if there's anything that's disempowering you, especially in the 8th house, right? So old contractual agreements involving finances, partnership in marriage and joint finances through marriage, joint finances through inheritance, right? Money that comes in from an outside source through investments. But especially, I would say, with Venus retrograding in Scorpio in the 8th house, being highlighted by this, that this would be a really great time for you to think of new and innovative ways to pay off debts and to bring yourself to a place of greater financial freedom. If you don't have any debts, this would be a good time to think about innovative new ways to invest your money or to save your resources, right? So innovative new places that you could put your money, right? That type of thing. And innovative new ways that you can work really hard, you know, to create a better structure for yourself moving forward financially, because that's Saturn as part of this configuration in the 10th house of career and public reputation. So overall, this is going to bring potential change, potential disruption, but I think it's going to be a positive sort of disruption, and it's going to carry out some energy that was seeded in May, and then maybe even, you know, a few weeks ago when we had this Uranus opposition to Venus come exact for the first time. All right, for Taurus and for Taurus rising, this is the full moon in your house. So this is the culmination point of something that was seeded. I would say, again, probably, you know, May, June at the latest. There would have been sort of this energy, especially if you have your Taurus rising or your sun or your moon at the first couple of degrees of Taurus. So that 0 degree especially, but also the 1st and 2nd degree, even into 29, 28 degrees Aries would be feeling this a little bit more intensely than some of the other degrees of, you know, Taurus and Aries and all of that. But so if you have your sun, moon, rising at around the first degree of Taurus, you're going to be feeling this a little bit more strongly. This could be the culmination point of something that you seeded, involving a change, a need to liberate yourself, to break free from old paradigms, old structures, old relationships, even that felt limiting, restricting, burdensome to you in some sort of way. This is you changing your identity out in the world in a really big way. And this full moon is highlighting that, and the need to continue to make these adjustments, right? To continue to make these changes, to keep yourself liberated, to keep yourself free. This could bring up some sort of unexpected circumstance involving an old flame, an old romance, an old relationship in your life that comes back around, that sort of shows up unexpectedly. They send you a message, they, show up at your house, you see them out on the streets, something along those lines, where it's somebody maybe you haven't thought about for a long time. And in this case, I would say that with all the retrograde energy and with Saturn, bringing these benefits, it could be possible to reintegrate this person into your life for the long term. And so maybe that's why they're showing up. This is also a really good time to renegotiate the terms and agreements within your current relationships. And so if you are in a relationship that feels limiting and restricting in some sort of way, maybe you need to reevaluate or revisit something and make some changes to the structure of that relationship in order to give yourself more freedom. And so that way you feel, better about your relationships, right? Because this is you coming back into balance also when it comes to your relationships, right? Because we have the sun in the sign of Scorpio in your 7th house of relationship, conjunct Venus retrograde in your 7th house of relationship. And so there's probably been a lot of focus, especially with that Venus retrograde, on your relationships. And the full moon's calling you to come back into balance by focusing on your needs, your self-interest, what you need in order to feel free, excited, lit up, and liberated again. All right, so for Gemini and for Gemini rising, so this full moon is actually happening in your 12th house. And so the 12th house is the house of sort of retreat. It's the house of solitude, seclusion, rest, right? It's where you go to relax. It's where you go to disengage from reality and from the real world and from the day-to-day grind. And so with the full moon happening in the 12th house, this is a good time for you to think about coming back into balance by spending time away from the world, spending time in solitude, seclusion, focusing on your dreams, your intuition, your creativity, journaling, getting those visions, impressions, and downloads that you might be getting really intensely throughout this next week, and putting them out into words, putting them into language, saving them for later if they don't make sense right now, because you might be getting some sort of weird stuff coming up. With Uranus transiting the 12th house, there's usually an indication that over the next few years, you might be studying some more unusual forms of spirituality, and you might be doing that behind closed doors, right? And so the moon might be highlighting that and highlighting these sort of new ideas, these new forms of spirituality, these new forms of creativity that you might be seeking and sort of working on learning. And then whatever it is that you're doing in terms of your work, so you've probably been working kind of hard to sort of rebalance yourself when it comes to your work relationships, your health, your daily work routines, your daily health habits and daily health routines. And so Saturn right now is actually helping you with that. So whatever it is that you're working on, revising, re-editing, and redoing in that area, it's going to give you a lot of benefits, a lot of internal benefits. You're going to feel much more empowered because of the changes that you're making in these relationships, these routines, these habits, revisiting different creative ideas and projects, renegotiating contracts with your work. All of this is going to help to empower you and help you to set a better foundation for yourself when it comes to your resources and your finances moving forward. Also, the work that you're doing in changing things up in terms of like your spirituality, the unconscious realm, tapping into that creativity and that creative source, that's going to help you to feel much more empowered and grounded on a physical level moving forward as well, because you'll have a better context for everything that you're experiencing. And so, that's, what's going on for Gemini and for Gemini rising. So, again, mostly positive, but this is a good week to spend time in solitude and seclusion, to spend a little bit of time away from the world. This is a good week to escape from reality, especially if you are feeling that disruptive influence a little bit. There could be something that you need to break free from in terms of an unconscious or subconscious habit, or there could be some sort of subconscious rebellion that you've been repressing that might be expressed this week as well. So, it could take the form of a dream or an impression or some sort of archetypal image, but it could also take the form of you expressing something out in the world, right? And so it just kind of depends on where you're at with that. All right, and for Cancer rising, This full moon is actually happening in your 11th house of friends, social networks. It's the people that you surround yourself with by choice. It's, groups of people, it's networks and organizations that you're a part of. It's charity organizations as well, and humanitarian types of pursuits. And so you might have been focusing a lot of energy, especially with Venus retrograding in your 5th house, on your children, on romance, on play, on your hobbies, your interests, your passions, especially creative ones, on, focusing on your creative needs and your creative self-expression out in the world. And now it's time to come back into balance by focusing on the needs of the group, right? Focusing on the needs of your friends, focusing on your social networks, focusing on connecting with people via the internet. There could have been something that you started, either during the Venus retrograde or, especially during that time period when Uranus was at the 0 degree back in May and June. There could have been something that you started and initiated involving your social networks, or maybe new friends came into play, or old friends, sort of the friendships maybe ended abruptly, or you had to change something or liberate yourself from certain groups of people that were just not working for you anymore, right? Where you felt limited, restricted, and burdened by these relationships. And so something involving these themes could come back around, but I really do feel like somebody new could be coming into your life this week, or somebody old could be coming back into your life this week, because we have, Uranus and Venus in retrograde. And if this is the case, that person's probably coming around and coming, back into your life because you need to reintegrate them for, the long term. Or, it could be the long-term benefit. It could be that you're letting them go finally. But, with Saturn in this really nice trine with the full moon in your 11th house and the sextile with Venus in your 5th house right now, it could be an old flame or an old romance, or it could be an old friendship or an old group of people that you used to be a part of, and you want to reintegrate that because that group helped you to feel liberated. It helped you to feel free. It helped you to feel like lit up and excited about life again. And so, or it could just be, an individual person that you bring back into your life and they stick with you for the long term. So those things are all possible for you right now. This could be you renegotiating the terms of, some sort of contractual agreement or some sort of agreement within a relationship. That's possible as well. But in general, this could bring like unexpected sort of circumstances over these next couple of weeks, in this week into next week, involving your friends, your social networks, the people that you surround yourself with, relationships. Things could be a little topsy-turvy, but if that is the case, the benefits are going to outweigh the costs, and the discomfort is going to be worthwhile because it's going to bring a lot of long-term stability for you in your relationships. For Leo and for Leo rising, this full moon is happening in your 10th house of career. And so this could be, first off, the culmination point of something that you've seeded, especially back in May or June, or even over the course of this past month or so, but something that you seeded in terms of a change, or something that you seeded in terms of trying to create more freedom and to liberate yourself through the work that you're doing out in the world, through your career, your public reputation. There could have been a disruption that happened in your career, and you have to revisit what was going on there, a disruption to your finances, a disruption to your family unit, a disruption, in terms of you having to focus more on your work, and that takes you away from your family, maybe a disruption in terms of a contact with, a person in a position of authority, a boss, something along those lines. But you might have to revisit some of this energy. So there might be some changes that you've been making in terms of your career. And if you haven't made those changes, you might have been feeling that frustration or that urgency, that need to sort of do something different in order to liberate yourself and to free yourself from old, stagnant, stale, repressive habits and, repressive sort of environments that you're working in, or oppressive, overarching authority figures that maybe are making you feel frustrated, or like you need to break free and liberate yourself in some sort of way. And so this could be you revisiting that energy. With the full moon, though, in the sign, or in the 10th house in the sign of Taurus, this is probably going to be the culmination point of something that you've been working toward changing when it comes to your career goals and plans, especially because Saturn in the 6th house, which indicates that you've been working really hard lately, is going to be trining this full moon and sextiling Venus retrograde in the 4th house. And so this is going to help you to come back into balance between work and life, between, the home and family, and your career goals and plans. And a lot of the hard work that you've been putting in both of these areas, and especially as it it relates to your work, your daily habits, your daily routines at home, and, through your work. You're going to start to see some of the results of these efforts you've been putting in, these changes you've been making this week. But there could be some sort of disruptive energy, some sort of topsy-turvy shake-up energy going on in your 10th house. But you're probably going to experience that more positively than anything else, unless you have your Leo rising at that 0 or 1 degree. Then this could bring a little bit more challenge, right? Because this is going to be squaring your ascendant or your sun or your moon or whatever it is that you're listening for right now. And, in which case this could be challenging you to change something that could feel very uncomfortable, and that could be a lot more disruptive to your identity and to your relationships, as well as your work and your home life. All right, so for Virgo and for Virgo rising, this full moon is happening in your 9th house. The 9th house is the house of your philosophical and religious values and belief systems that frame your reality, your beliefs about God, the universe, the world around you, your beliefs about yourself and your own limitations. And so this is you breaking free from old limitations that are imposed on you by your belief systems. Maybe you used to sort of adhere to a more oppressive religious system or value system or philosophical or moral value system, and you're starting to rethink that. You're starting to break free a little bit. You're starting to expand your horizons and expand your mind and break free from these old paradigms. This could also be the culmination point of some sort of travel plans that were initiated sort of spontaneously in the past, or this could bring up unexpected plans for travel, right? And, maybe even travel within a partnership. So this could be bringing about unexpected travel plans with a partner, or some sort of like love affair, boyfriend, girlfriend, romantic fling, something along those lines. Or, travel plans maybe involving children or siblings or extended family or something along those lines could be part of it as well. This could also be you thinking about branching out and changing something in terms of your education, and this could bring the culmination point of what was seeded in that respect. But really this is about you coming back into balance between your day-to-day sort of communications and seeing a little bit more clearly the bigger picture. So this is bringing you the gift of perspective this week, right? So you're able to sort of take yourself out of the situation, see the bigger picture, why you're making these changes, why these things are happening, why you're having all these weird communications and having to revisit all of these interactions with people with Venus in retrograde in your 3rd house, or why you have to revisit all of these old skill sets and all of these old sort of things that you've learned in the past and acquired and accumulated in terms of your knowledge. But Saturn is bringing benefits to you in the long term. So whatever it is that's coming up for you right now, even if it's disruptive, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it causes you to branch far outside of your comfort zones this week, especially when it comes to your mental comfort zones, right? Your habitual patterns of thinking, believing, communicating, it's going to benefit you in the long term by giving you more of a solid structure and foundation for play, for engaging in the things that you love to do, for your hobbies, your interests. Sometimes when Saturn transits the 5th house, you might want to take your hobbies and interests and turn them into something that's profitable for you, right? Something that connects with your work. And, the 5th house is the house that rules entrepreneurs, and you have Saturn transiting through there. Saturn rules hard work. It rules structure, form, businesses, right? That type of thing. And so, that could be part of it as well. But it could be that you need to get some more education before you do that, or learn a new skill set, or find a mentor who can help you, somebody who's a little eccentric, who thinks outside the box. That could be part of it too. All right. But if there is a disruption, obviously the end results are a solid foundation for your future in the areas of your education, the ability to expand your mind through travel, to connect with people in foreign countries and foreign lands, to connect with people locally as well, and a solid foundation for yourself in terms of play and your ability to do the things that you love to do more regularly in the future, right? All right. All right, and so for for Libra and for Libra rising, this full moon is happening in your 8th house. And so this is a deeply empowering and transformative full moon. This is where you're going to see some sort of result or manifestation of some changes or adjustments that you've been making to liberate yourself from old fears, old traumas, old wounds, old insecurities, old anxieties, old obsessions, old addictions, right? And to break free from all of these old paradigms that are limiting and restricting and dictating your behavior, dictating who you are out in the world, disempowering you, right? And so anything that you've been sort of initiating or working on in terms of breaking free from these types of habits or these types of paradigms or relationships or agreements or fears, you're going to start to see the culmination point of the work that you've been doing in this area and in this realm. This could also be you seeing the culmination point of changes that you've been making involving joint finances, involving debt, other people's money, investments, right? Because that's also the 8th house. This could be you thinking about making new, exciting, different investments that are outside of the norm, that are a little bit unusual for you. This could also be you thinking about unusual ways to save, your resources and all of that. This could bring unexpected money that comes in from an outside source that helps you to set up a solid foundation for the future, for your family or for your home, for your property. That could be part of it as well. This could also be money coming in through like a mortgage or something like that for your home or for your property. If that is the case, just be careful and make sure that you're shopping around and getting the best deal, because it's not the best time to do something like that with Venus retrograding in Scorpio in your 2nd house. But you can, if you shop around, find a really good deal. Or refinancing something, that could be part of it as well. Maybe you're refinancing a mortgage or some sort of loan with Venus retrograding in your 2nd house, or you're rebudgeting, revamping, thinking about how you can work with your resources more effectively in a way that is a little bit more liberating, that gives you more freedom, because that's really what this is all about. It's about financial freedom and financial liberation, with Uranus transiting through Taurus in your 2nd house, and this Venus retrograde too. So you having to sort of revisit things when it comes to your finances, when it comes to your agreements and contracts with your finances. And then whatever it is that's coming up for you, there could be a disruption, either positive or negative, to your finances this week or next. But if that is the case, the end results are going to be positive. And again, you're going to be setting yourself up with a way better foundation for your future when it comes to your home, your family, your property, your place of living. With Venus going retrograde in your 2nd house, you've probably been rethinking a lot in terms of the way that you spend your money, the way that you use your resources, the way that maybe you hold on to your resources too tightly in Scorpio, or the way that you sort of just let them go. And so this could be the culmination point of something that you seeded, involving making changes, making adjustments, balancing your budget, all of that. But this could also be bringing up unexpectedly some deep fears, some deep anxieties, insecurities, old habits, something along those lines, where it comes back up and you have to work through it. And maybe you thought that you had already worked through it. Maybe you thought that you already liberated yourself and that you were already sort of empowered through that process. And it comes back and you have to sort of revisit that. But again, the end result of this is going to be positive and beneficial. You're setting yourself up with a really solid foundation for the future, where you can have much more freedom in the areas that you want, especially financially. For Scorpio and for Scorpio rising, this full moon is bringing a culmination point in your 7th house, which rules relationships. It rules all relationships, not just marriage partnerships or romantic relationships, but also close friendships, business partnerships, any sort of contractual agreements. Even sometimes close family relationships, I've noticed, can show up in the 7th house, because it's all close one-on-one relationships, client relationships, that type of thing as well. And so this could bring back around some sort of disruption in that area, where your relationship or the sort of structure of a certain relationship has been up for change, because maybe it's been feeling a little frustrating. Maybe you've been feeling a little bogged down, repressed, or resentful of certain relationships or certain agreements amongst yourself and other people, or certain contracts. And so maybe you've been working on liberating yourself and giving yourself a little bit more freedom in that respect. And so this is going to bring up some sort of culmination point or some sort of manifestation of something that was seeded a while ago in terms of change and liberation within a partnership. The other thing that's going on here is that this is happening in a really nice sextile with your 3rd house. And so you could have some unexpected communications coming in, from clients, from past, love affairs, past flings, past relationships could come back around as well this week in a way that's really unexpected and unusual, and could kind of make you like, that's weird. And it could shake you up a little bit and shake your foundation. Maybe you thought you were happy in your relationship, and then, an old relationship pops back up and you're like, whoa. Who's that, right? And maybe you're reintegrating them back into your life. Or maybe, it's an old friendship or an old colleague or an old communication or an old sort of neighbor, right? That's Saturn in the 3rd house that you have to reintegrate back into your life. But old relationships can come back around, and you might be finding yourself on the receiving end of a communication, or finding yourself feeling pulled to reach out to people from your past. But this is also an energy that can bring unexpected surprises within a partnership. It can bring unexpected surprises that disrupt a partnership, and it can bring unexpected surprises in the form of a new relationship or partnership this week. And then, also the energy of Venus retrograding in your first house could have had you sort of reevaluating your image, your public persona, wanting to retreat inward a little bit more, maybe feeling a little awkward or uncomfortable with your appearance or with your image, or just out in the world in general, interacting with people right now. So you maybe have found yourself withdrawing a little bit, but this is going to bring you back into focusing on relationship, right? Focusing on the people that you care about the most in ways that are unexpected and unusual. This would be a really great week to go out and do something, maybe take a short distance trip with Saturn in your third house in this trine here, and do something exciting, maybe do something a little bit different, a little eccentric, a little bit outside of the box to shake up your relationship in a positive way, if that's something you feel pulled to do. All right, for Sagittarius and for Sagittarius rising, this full moon is happening in your 6th house of work. So this could bring the culmination point of something that was seeded back in May or June of this past year, involving changes that you've been wanting to make when it comes to your day-to-day work life, your day-to-day work routines. Maybe your work life and work days have become too mundane, too monotonous, too restricted, too limiting, too burdensome. And so you've been wanting to break free and change something when it comes to your work or your career goals overall. And so you could unexpectedly have a change or a result of something that you initiated in the past, especially over these past couple of weeks or these past few months, that start of the summer time period that I just talked about. You could have something coming back around, but it could come back around in a way that's shocking or unexpected, or it happens very suddenly in a way that's you maybe weren't prepared for. But the end results of this are going to be very positive in terms of setting yourself up for a very solid foundation for your future financially, right? Because Saturn transiting your 2nd house is causing you to have to work harder for your resources. Your resources might be a little bit more limited or restricted during this time with Saturn transiting the 2nd house, but whatever you're going to be doing in terms of changing things in your work dynamic this week or your day-to-day work routines, this is something that's going to really set you up for a solid foundation to build off of in the future for your financial success. Old relationships or old connections could play a role in this as well, especially past connections that have been sort of buried way beneath the surface that would unexpectedly come up for you. And so, and you might have been, feeling the pull to sort of turn inward, focusing on your creativity, focusing on your own needs, focusing on rest, right? Because there's, been a lot of busy energy for Sagittarius lately, and this is going to pull you back out into the world. So just get ready to have a lot to do, a lot to deal with. Expect the unexpected, especially when it comes to your daily routines, because those are going to be very disruptive. Any plans that you have made might not stand, especially when it comes to your work. But again, it's for a reason, and it's going to create better stability for you in the long term. And you're going to feel like you have that excitement because you're Sagittarius rising, right? You need a lot of excitement. You need a lot of freedom. You need to constantly be shaking things up. And so, when your daily routines get too monotonous, Sagittarius is not like that. They just want to escape and go run away and do something crazy. And so this can bring that opportunity for you. All right. And so for Capricorn and for Capricorn rising, this full moon is happening in your 5th house of romance. And so this could be an unexpected new romance, an unexpected fling. This could cause you to revisit something involving children or involving play, your passions, your hobbies, your interests, looking into branching out into something a little bit more eccentric, unusual, off the beaten path when it comes to the things that you do for pleasure and for fun. And so if there was something that was seated in these areas of like romance, pleasure, play, children, all of that, sometime at the beginning of the summer especially. So I would say again in May or June, and then also these past few weeks there's been a lot of energy going on as well. This would be a time when a lot of that stuff that was seeded around that time could reach a culmination point, and it would reach a culmination point in a way that you wouldn't expect it to. So you could expect the unexpected this week when it comes to issues involving children, issues involving play, issues involving romance. You could have an old flame that comes back around, or an old friend who becomes a new flame, right? Because that's the opposition to Venus retrograding in your 11th house of friendship. And so that could be something that reaches a culmination point. Maybe there's been sort of this underlying tension going on between, you and a friend, or an acquaintance or something like that, somebody in one of your, social circles, and it turns into something different and it's a little bit unexpected. This could also, bring changes that are going to be really long lasting for you in these areas that allow you to have more time for play, for fun. You might be feeling really the burden of the responsibility right now, like the weight of the world is on your shoulders with having Saturn transiting your sign, Capricorn. Capricorn is no stranger to hard work. Like, it's not like you're afraid to work hard, but when you have that much Saturn going on all at once, it can feel a little heavy. It can feel a little burdensome. You can feel a little restricted in your ability to just be yourself and to just enjoy life, right? And so this is going to give you a chance to play, and it's going to come in sort of unexpected ways. So just, the disruption, I think, will be positive. You'll feel liberated and you'll feel free a little bit more so. All right. So for Aquarius and for Aquarius rising, this full moon is happening in your 4th house of the home and family and your property. And so when you're looking at the full moon in the 4th house, this is bringing you back into balance. From focusing on your work, your public reputation, especially with Venus in your 10th house right now. You could have been feeling a little bit more maybe down on yourself when it comes to your career or your ability to create resources, or your reputation amongst your superiors or coworkers. And, you could have been revisiting different things, revising, re-editing, looking back on past experiences with your work, and sort of, it's kind of an awkward thing when you have Venus retrograding there. But, now's the time when you're going to come back into balance by focusing on your roots, your home, your family, your property, the people that, you surround yourself with in your home environment. Even things like roommates could be applicable to this. And there could be some unexpected circumstances that come through your family or through your home this week that might sort of shake things up and shock you out of complacency there. If you've been working on changing something in this area, especially something that was seeded, I would say in May and June, or, in the past couple of weeks, the first time that this opposition came exact, then this is a time when that could reach a culmination point as well. And it might come about in a way that's very unexpected and unusual. This could bring more excitement when it comes to your home. If you've been thinking about maybe living as a nomad or branching out and doing something a little bit different when it comes to the way that you live and your property and your home environment, now's a time when that could reach a culmination point. You can actually see some sort of manifestation of what it was that you were trying to create in this area. And so yeah, and I think the end results are going to be, positive, and that the changes that you'll be making this week will ultimately be long lasting, and they'll help you to sort of shed your old skin, to let go of old stuck patterns, especially subconscious patterns, old stuck paradigms, right? Old conditioning that is not you, that you need to let go of through this sort of change in your home situation, through this change maybe in your work situation as well. So you can become more you, right? And so you can feel more liberated in all areas of life. All right, for Pisces and for Pisces rising, this full moon is happening in your 3rd house of communication. So you might find some disruptive communication coming in this week, especially something that's being revisited or that's coming back around in a way that's unusual and unexpected. Thinking about things that you might have seeded in May and June involving, changes to the way that you communicate to yourself and to others, maybe exploring new areas of research, new areas of learning and education, maybe just like learning about different new topics that are a little bit eccentric, changing your mindset and your belief systems surrounding your day-to-day experience, changing your self-talk, right? Because that's the 3rd house. It's the way that we speak every single day that sort of unintentionally frames our reality and frames people's opinions of us. And so there could be some disruptive information or communication that comes in this week. That's sort of the main thing. And that communication could cause you to need to change something about the way that you interact with people in your day-to-day life or change something about your beliefs, either on a mundane level or your overarching beliefs about God, the universe, the world around you, your ethical and philosophical belief systems, which right now are up for review to a certain extent. And there could be, an unexpected communication that causes you to rework something when it comes to the foundation that you've set for yourself with your friends and your social networks. You're probably going through a period right now where you're letting go and cutting cords with a lot of people in terms of like your friend group and your social circle, and maybe groups of people that you once surrounded yourself with that you maybe want to let go of now. And a lot of your friends become more work related, or when you make new friendships, they will stand the test of time. And this is a week when those new friendships could come in unexpectedly through some sort of shocking communication or something like that, or some sort of shocking communication could cause you to have to let go of an old friendship. But that experience is going to be probably mostly positive, and it's going to be setting you up. It's going to be clearing the way and setting that foundation so you have space to have really good, really solid, stable, long-lasting friendships coming into your life moving forward, if that is the case. But yeah, so this is going to be, you could have unexpected, I think, opportunities for travel as well. But you're going to have to focus more on the day-to-day, more on the day-to-day communication. You could probably have an unexpected like short trip, or you might just feel like you're caged up and you're like, I need to get out of here. I need to leave this place. And so you could sort of on a whim just impulsively decide that you're going to, get with your friends and go on like a little day trip or something like that. And that could actually be a really exciting experience, as long as you're not trying to control everything, right? Because Uranus is not going to let you control everything. Uranus is going to bring about some unusual circumstances, but it's going to be very exciting and very liberating, if you decide to embark on some sort of adventure like that. Okay, so I feel like that is a good rundown for everyone. So we went through Aries through Pisces. I don't think I missed anyone today. I hope that this was helpful for you guys. This energy is going to be lasting for a couple of weeks. We'll get into it even more deeply next week, especially with that opposition between Uranus and Venus, which is going to involve a lot of interesting energy in relationships especially, but also in finances and self-worth and all of these things that we started to talk about this week. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put those below in the comment section. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. And if you want to book a reading with me, you can absolutely always do that. The link to do that is in the description of this video below. All right, thank you guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye.